Welcome to the Agile Software Engineering Deep Dive, the podcast where we unpack the ideas shaping modern software engineering. My name is Alessandro Guida, and I've spent most of my career building and leading software engineering teams across several industries. And today I want to start with a simple question. Are we actually getting better at delivering software? Because if you look at how we work today, it certainly feels that way. We have Agile, we have better tools, we have faster feedback loops. We deliver in small increments. We adapt continuously. We move faster than ever before. And yet, if you look a bit closer, a different pattern starts to emerge. Projects still miss deadlines. Scope is still quietly reduced. Teams still operate under constant pressure to make things work. The failure is less visible than it used to be, but it hasn't disappeared. It has changed form. In this episode, I want to explore an idea that may sound a bit uncomfortable. That the classic Death March project didn't go away with Agile, it evolved. From something visible and dramatic, to something slower, more subtle, and much harder to detect. We will look at why Agile improves outcomes, but does not eliminate the fundamental challenges of software delivery. Why structure, especially at scale, can quietly reintroduce the same risks. And how modern practices, including AI, can sometimes amplify the illusion of progress rather than resolve the underlying problem. But most importantly, we will look at what we can do about it, how to detect misalignment early, how to make it visible, and how to create space to correct it before the system starts compensating in unhealthy ways. Because avoiding failure is not about better planning, it is about maintaining alignment between ambition and reality. Let's dive in.
You know that incredibly specific feeling. I feel like it's universally understood.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Right. You're sitting in a project update meeting, and you're looking at a dashboard that is just filled with green check marks.
Upward trending charts everywhere.
Exactly. Everything looks perfect on paper. But, like deep down in your bones, that you are absolutely going to miss the deadline.
Yep, the classic watermelon project.
The watermelon project, right. Green on the outside, bright red on the inside.
It's terrifying.
It really is. You're completely exhausted. I mean, the whole team is running on fumes, and yet somehow all the official tools insist that everyone is perfectly on track.
Which is wild when you think about it.
It's so wild because we live in an era of, lightning fast communication, endless software tooling. We have these incredibly sophisticated agile methodologies now.
Right. In theory, delivering complex projects should be so much easier today.
Exactly. But the pressure hasn't evaporated at all. Deadlines are still being blown constantly. People are still up at 2 a.m. just trying to make it work.
Yeah, just brute forcing it.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Why is this still our reality? Today, we are pulling a really core insight from issue 26 of the Agile Software Engineering newsletter.
Which is a great issue, by the way.
It really is. And it asks this simple but honestly terrifying question. Why do Agile projects still fail?
And, while the author explicitly targets young engineering managers with this text, the mechanics of failure they describe, they apply to anyone managing a complex system.
Right, it's not just a software thing.
Oh, absolutely not. Whether you're building enterprise software or, designing a physical supply chain or trying to launch a massive marketing initiative.
The underlying forces are basically identical.
Exactly. So the mission of our deep dive today is to really dissect the infamous Death March project.
Ugh, the Death March.
Right. We need to look at why this specific type of failure hasn't been eradicated by modern workflows, how it's stealthily mutated into something much harder to detect.
And what we can actually do about it.
Yes. Most importantly, the specific mechanisms you can use to catch this invisible drift before your project just falls off a cliff.
Because the phrase Death March, it brings up such a visceral image.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone who has spent any time in tech or corporate project management hears that term and instantly pictures a very specific scene from like the late 90s or early 2000s.
Oh, the stacked pizza boxes.
The pizza boxes, fluorescent lights buzzing on a Sunday night, people with sleeping bags under their desks.
Yeah, that frantic, agonizing push toward an impossible launch date.
It's like a fiery crash. It's
Yeah.
undeniably loud. But, well, if I'm reading this newsletter correctly, the author argues that focusing on the pizza boxes means we are entirely misunderstanding the concept.
We are, because the exhaustion and the visible panic, those are just late-stage symptoms. The text actually defines the death march not as an event, but as a structural condition.
The structural condition. Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning it's born from a fundamental mathematical mismatch between the ambition of a project and the reality of its constraints.
Oh, okay.
Right. A true death march environment requires a few very specific ingredients. You have fixed, usually politically motivated deadlines.
Right, of course.
You have implicitly fixed scopes, where cutting features is just viewed as a total failure.
Nobody wants to be the one to cut features.
Exactly. Insufficient resources, and crucially, an incredibly high level of uncertainty that management just refuses to formally acknowledge.
It was like a toxic cocktail.
It really is. When you combine those elements, the project isn't just challenging. The math is broken from day one. It is unstable by design.
Wow. Okay, so it's like the difference between a tire blowout on the highway versus a slow leak.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Like a blowout is that traditional dramatic death march. You hear a loud bang, the car swerves, and you are forced to pull over immediately.
Right, it's undeniable. Everyone sees it.
But a slow leak, you can keep driving on a slow leak. You might not even notice the handling getting worse at first, but eventually you're driving on the rim, throwing sparks, and you've destroyed the entire wheel.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is that the slow leak is actually much more dangerous.
Because of the illusion of progress.
Exactly. And the irony is that Agile methodologies were explicitly designed to prevent the blowout.
Right. Agile was supposed to be the cure.
Think about the core promises of Agile, right? Replacing upfront, rigid certainty with continuous learning.
2-week sprints.
Right. Breaking work down so you can constantly reprioritize features. Promoting a sustainable pace so people aren't sleeping under their desks.
So in theory, Agile eliminates the exact structural conditions that create a death march.
In theory, yes. But the industry data cited in the newsletter, like the Standish Group CAOS reports?
Yeah, I saw that.
It shows that projects are still bleeding budgets and missing dates at an alarming rate.
But wait, if Agile is doing what it's supposed to do, delivering working pieces of the project every couple of weeks, why is the overarching project still failing?
Well, because Agile only changes how the team works on a day-to-day basis.
Oh.
It does not automatically change the underlying constraints imposed by the broader organization.
Right, the board of directors still wants what they want.
Exactly. If the board mandates a fixed launch date and the product team still demands a fixed set of features, putting your developers in a 2-week sprint doesn't magically alter the laws of physics.
You're still trapped.
You haven't removed the death march at all. You've just distributed the pain across dozens of tiny, localized increments.
Okay, so the death march didn't disappear, it just put on a different outfit. It evolved into this condition of continuous friction.
Yeah, it creates a perpetual state of what the author calls partial success.
Partial success, meaning what?
The stakeholders see movement. Every sprint, they get a demo of a new button or a new database connection.
So they're happy.
They're thrilled. But underneath that shiny surface, delivery is getting incrementally less predictable.
Because of technical debt.
Exactly. The architecture of the system starts to drift because developers are optimizing for the 2-week goal rather than the long-term health of the system.
Just to hit the sprint target.
Right. So rework increases, the system moves forward, but the internal friction just grows heavier every single day.
That is deeply unsettling. Like, if you are listening to this right now and thinking, well, my team hits all our sprint goals, so we're completely fine.
That's the terrifying part.
It really is. You can be locally succeeding while the broader system is quietly dying. But, okay, I have played devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
If you have, say, 50 teams working on a massive banking application, you can't just let them all run wildly independent agile sprints.
Yeah.
You need structure, right?
Oh, for sure.
You have to coordinate, or else Team A is going to build a bridge that literally doesn't connect to Team B's road.
You absolutely have to scale the coordination, and the text acknowledges that reality. When organizations try to scale Agile, they typically adopt these massive frameworks.
Like SAFe, right.
Right, the Scaled Agile Framework,
Okay,
often referred to as SAFe. So to get 50 teams moving in the same direction, These frameworks reintroduce long-term planning. You create what are called program increments.
What exactly is a program increment in practice?
Think of it as stretching the logic of a 2-week sprint across a massive 3-month calendar for hundreds of people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All the teams get together, they map out their dependencies, meaning Team B physically cannot finish their work until Team A finishes theirs.
Right.
And they build this massive interconnected plan for the quarter. It's a necessary evolution for a large enterprise. But the moment you introduce that web of dependencies, you reintroduce the exact trap Agile was trying to escape.
Because the moment Team A tells Team B, hey, we think we can have our part done by October, Team B builds their entire quarterly schedule around that date.
Exactly. What started as a best guess instantly hardens into a contract.
Right, because everyone else's timeline now depends on it.
The psychology of the organization forces it to harden. Plans become expectations. Expectations become implicit contracts.
So all that agile flexibility just vanishes.
It gets completely crushed by the pressure to coordinate at the system level. So imagine a developer on Team A realizes in September that their feature is actually twice as complex as they thought.
Okay.
In pure Agile, they would stop, go to the product owner, and negotiate cutting the scope.
But in Scaled Agile, they can't do that because Team B, Team C, and the marketing department are already treating that feature as a total guarantee.
So instead of adjusting the scope to match reality, the organization protects the commitment.
They just force it through.
Management implicitly tells the team to absorb the variability. Just make it work.
And that's where the bad decisions happen.
Exactly. The developers take shortcuts. They skip writing automated tests. They push the really complex, difficult architectural decisions further down the line.
So they technically meet the date.
They meet the date, but they inject a massive amount of hidden risk into the entire system.
And this brings us to the metrics, right? Which the newsletter highlights as the great camouflage of this whole process.
Oh, the metrics.
We are so obsessed with things like story points and velocity. And for anyone not deep in software jargon, story points are basically just arbitrary numbers a team assigns to a task to guess how hard it is.
Right, it's just a rough estimate.
And velocity is just how many of those points they finish in a sprint. So if our velocity is going up, like if we did 50 points last week and 60 points this week, management throws a party, right?
They do, because management assumes velocity equals progress. But the text argues these metrics create a really dangerous illusion of measurability.
It's all fake.
Well, velocity just measures how fast you are moving tasks across a Jira board. It tells you absolutely nothing about whether those tasks are actually getting you closer to a stable, functional product. When developers are pressured to absorb the friction of a broken plan, they will naturally game the metrics.
Of course they will.
They will close tickets to keep the velocity chart looking green, even if the code they are writing is brittle and terrible.
So it's just abstracting away the real constraints. It's like measuring the success of a road trip solely by how fast the speedometer says you're going.
Yes.
Completely ignoring the fact that you were driving in the wrong direction
Yay.
and the engine is literally smoking.
In the traditional loud death march, a bad plan became visible the moment you blew past a major multi-month milestone, right? The failure was obvious.
Everyone knew it.
But in a scaled agile model, the mismatch between the plan and reality is distributed across dozens of tiny iterations.
So you don't feel the impact all at once.
Right. Each iteration looks successful on paper. You close the tickets. The chart looks great. The project just drifts quietly toward failure, completely masked by perfectly optimized vanity metrics.
Wow. So if metrics are creating this illusion of safety, the conversation in the newsletter pivots to something that is currently pouring high-octane gasoline on this exact fire.
The AI amplifier.
Yes, the AI amplifier. Artificial intelligence is supercharging this problem. And my initial thought reading this was, wait, if AI can write code for us, shouldn't that solve the constraint problem? Shouldn't that just save the project?
That is the assumption, right? But the reality is much darker.
Really?
AI tools like coding assistants absolutely allow developers to generate code significantly faster. Routine boilerplate tasks are eliminated. Output skyrockets.
Sounds great so far.
It does, but this fundamentally alters the psychology of the management overseeing the project. They look at the repository and see twice as much code being committed every day.
And they think everything is amazing.
The natural human tendency is to equate volume with comprehension.
They see high output and just assume the team has a really high understanding of the problem.
Precisely the trap. Just because an AI can generate 1,000 lines of code in 10 seconds does not mean the developer prompting that AI fully understands how those 1,000 lines interact with the rest of the legacy system.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Faster output does not remove uncertainty.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let me see if I can picture this. It's like being lost in a dense forest. And instead of taking a moment to figure out where north is, someone hands you a machine that prints topographical maps 10 times faster.
That's exactly it.
Right, you're generating maps at record speed, handing them out to the team, and just sprinting through the trees. You feel incredibly productive, but you were actually just getting lost deeper and faster.
And what happens to the expectations of the stakeholders who are watching you sprint?
They probably expect even more.
Right. When output surges, expectations tighten, management thinks, great, AI doubled our speed, so let's cut the timeline in half and add 3 more features. They push an already strained, poorly aligned system even harder. The AI isn't reducing the complexity. It's allowing teams to move incredibly fast inside a complex system they no longer fully grasp.
Which means they're just breaking things faster.
You are generating technical debt at light speed?
Okay, so what does this all mean? We are lost in the woods, printing maps faster than ever, and our velocity dashboards say we're making excellent time. How do we pull the emergency brake here?
That's the big question.
If the modern death march is this stealthy, and the metrics are actively lying to us, how does a manager actually spot the drift before the system totally breaks?
Well, the foundational shift in mindset the author insists on is separating process from alignment.
Process from alignment.
Yeah. Organizations mistakenly believe that having the right process, the daily stand-ups, the quarterly planning events, the beautifully organized task boards, they think that naturally creates a well-aligned project.
It feels organized, so it must be aligned.
Exactly, but it doesn't. Process only exposes alignment. And if you are relying purely on standard agile ceremonies, it usually exposes misalignment entirely too late.
So you have to actively monitor for the drift.
You do.
And the newsletter provides some really tangible early warning signs for this, which I found fascinating. These are things that, in isolation, might just look like a tough week.
Right.
But together, they form a massive red flag.
The symptoms of the slow leak.
Exactly.
For instance, look at your milestones. Are commitments repeatedly being met, but only through last-minute heroic efforts?
Oh, that's a huge one.
Does it require the lead engineer to work through the entire weekend just to get the sprint to close?
Or, here's one which I think happens everywhere. Sprint spillovers.
Yes.
When an increasing number of tasks don't get finished and just quietly roll over into the next 2-week sprint, just becomes a normalized habit.
Or quiet descoping.
With that.
This is when the gap between what was originally promised for a feature and what is actually delivered keeps widening, but nobody formally acknowledges the cut.
They just kind of sweep it under the rug.
The team just quietly delivers a stripped-down version to meet the date, and the stakeholders silently accept it, but the underlying resentment just builds and builds.
Another big one the text mentions is dependencies. Like when dependencies between teams devolve from simple agreements into really tense negotiations.
Oh yeah, when the fighting starts.
Right. Team A is supposed to give Team B a piece of code, but suddenly there are 3 meetings a week arguing over who is responsible for what, because everyone is just trying to protect their own local metrics.
And perhaps the most fatal indicator of all, when crucial architectural decisions, the foundational choices about how the system is actually built, are continuously postponed or worked around simply to keep the delivery speed up.
We'll fix it later.
Exactly. The team says, we'll fix the database structure later, we just need to get this button working today.
So, assuming we are paying attention, and we actually see these symptoms, we see the heroics, we see the quiet cuts, what is the actual lever management can pull?
Because telling people to just communicate better or work harder is clearly what causes the death march in the first place.
Exactly. The newsletter proposes a very specific mechanism called the risk mitigation buffer.
Yes, the buffer.
But I have to be honest, when I read that term, my immediate cynical thought was, oh, so we're just padding our estimates.
Right, everyone thinks that.
I tell management a project takes 6 weeks, but I know it really takes 4, so I have a secret 2-week slush fund to just slack off. Is that what this is?
That is the most common misconception, and the author explicitly warns against it. Padding is a coping mechanism for a broken system.
Okay.
Padding hides failure. If you secretly pad your estimate and things go wrong, you just quietly eat into the pad. Nobody knows that the system is in distress until the pad is gone and you miss the deadline anyway.
So the buffer is different.
The risk mitigation buffer is entirely different. It is a highly visible, explicitly scheduled block of time, usually 1 to 2 weeks inserted deliberately between critical phases of the project.
Oh, so it sits right there on the master calendar for the CEO to see.
Exactly. Let's say you have a massive software release. You schedule development to end on November 1st and the final testing phase to begin on November 14th.
Okay.
Those 2 weeks in between are the risk mitigation buffer. It is a scheduled void.
But here's the reality of the business world, right? If I put a 2-week blank space on a master schedule, the CEO or the finance department is going to immediately highlight it, cross it out, and say, great, you can launch 2 weeks earlier and save us money.
Of course they will.
How does a buffer actually survive contact with management?
It survives when you explain its function as a diagnostic tripwire.
A tripwire.
You tell management this buffer is not for doing work. The goal is to arrive at November 14th without having touched this buffer. It is a circuit breaker.
Oh, I see.
During the execution of the project, you monitor the boundary of that buffer obsessively. If development runs late and spills into the first day of that buffer, the circuit breaks.
The alarm bells go off.
Yes. That spillover is your undeniable mathematical proof of emerging misalignment. It proves that the original constraints you agreed upon are no longer tethered to reality.
Wow.
If the buffer begins to erode, you do not just shrug and let the team absorb the pain. You stop. You trigger an immediate, uncomfortable conversation about reality.
And because you put the tripwire 2 weeks before the actual testing phase, you haven't technically failed yet. You still have runway.
You see the trajectory while you still have room to maneuver. When that buffer shrinks, you don't tell the team to work weekends. You force the hard choices.
Like what?
You reassess the scope of the remaining features. You fix the bottlenecks that cause the delay. You make the architectural decisions you've been putting off. You bring actual agility back into the scaled system.
You treat the plan as a hypothesis, not a blood oath?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the core philosophy of avoiding the modern death march. The original plan was a best guess based on the information you had on day one.
Which is usually very little information.
Exactly. When the buffer shrinks, the universe is giving you new data. If you cannot stabilize the buffer through local adjustments, you have to escalate. But you escalate to realign the plan with reality, not to blindly defend the broken hypothesis.
Right.
The goal is to protect the system, not the plan. If you strip away the buffer just to appease an artificial timeline, you are guaranteeing the slow leak will turn into a catastrophic failure.
Protect the system, not the plan. I think that is the perfect distillation of everything we've talked about today.
It really is.
To bring this all together, we've explored how project failure has evolved. It's rarely a fiery crash anymore. It's a quiet, insidious drift.
Masked by metrics.
Masked by optimized velocity metrics that look perfect on paper. It's amplified by the sheer, overwhelming speed of AI output that tricks us into confusing volume with comprehension.
Yeah.
And it gets locked into place by rigid planning structures that turn our best guesses into unchangeable contracts. But the antidote isn't working harder.
Never.
The antidote is making your constraints explicitly visible, watching for the subtle signs of friction, and using diagnostic tools like the risk mitigation buffer to catch the misalignment before the system breaks.
And as we wrap up, I really want to leave you with a thought that extends far beyond software engineering or corporate management.
Oh, I like where this is going.
We've just spent this time analyzing how abstract metrics and hyperfast output can completely delude highly intelligent professionals into believing they're succeeding even as their system quietly degrades.
Right.
So look at your own life or your own personal goals outside of work. What vanity metrics or productivity hacks are you currently relying on?
Oh, wow, that's a tough question.
Are you tracking how many books you read without actually absorbing the knowledge? Are you logging hours at the gym without getting stronger?
Just going through the motions.
Exactly. What are you measuring right now that might just be giving you a false sense of control while masking a slow drift away from your actual fundamental goals?
Are you measuring movement or are you measuring progress? That is incredibly profound. The next time you look at a dashboard, whether it's at work or in your own life, and it tells you everything is perfectly green, remember to check the tires for a slow leak. Thank you for joining us as we mapped out the hidden mechanics of the modern death march. Keep questioning the structures around you, keep looking for your real constraints, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.
Thank you for listening to the Agile Engineering Deep Dive podcast. If you found this episode valuable, feel free to share it with someone who might benefit, a colleague, your team, or your network. You can access all episodes by subscribing to the podcast and find their written counterparts in the Agile Software Engineering newsletter on LinkedIn. And if you have thoughts, ideas, or stories from your own engineering journey, I'd love to hear from you. Your input helps shape what we explore next. Thanks again for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.